Snow fell thick through darkness. Headlights sliced it like blades. William Harrison slowed, heart uneasy. Something shimmered on the roadside. A woman in torn white, wedding dress dragging through snow, barefoot, heels clutched in hand, hair wet, eyes wild, lost. He almost drove right past. He'd learned, don't get involved. But something in her walk, like fleeing herself, made him stop. Window down, breath fogging glass. "Do you need help?" he asked. Silence hung before her answer. "Hit like if you've ever made a split-second life choice." He'd just left the conference. Mrs. Peterson's words still lingered. "Your daughter seems withdrawn lately." 8-year-old Charlie, his quiet world, Greenwich roads, oak trees, sleeping. He'd driven this route forever. Tonight felt strange. Too quiet. Snow heavier than expected. Then, she appeared from nowhere. Eyes fierce, desperate, still proud. A ghost carved from storm. He saw beauty but pain. Something raw beneath refinement's mask, like his own reflection once. The night after Sarah's funeral. "I'm fine," she said sharply, accent polished, old money laced. "Just taking a walk?" he asked. "In a wedding dress?" he added. She smiled, small and fleeting, then vanished behind the storm's breath. And William Harrison's life shifted. Because some strangers aren't accidents. "When you put it that way," her laugh trembled through cold air. "It does sound rather dramatic." He studied her, composed yet breaking. Snow hissed softly against silence. Her hands clutched the ruined gown. Expensive fabric soaked and heavy, diamonds catching light like stars. "Look," he said, voice steady. "I don't know what happened, but you'll freeze out here. No judgment, no questions, okay? Just warmth, a car, direction." She hesitated, eyes darting back, as though ghosts might appear. Fear flickered, then discipline returned. "I don't have a destination." Her voice almost lost itself. Will reached over, door opening. "Sometimes that's the best kind." She climbed in with grace, every motion controlled, deliberate, trained. Seatbelt crossed silk and lace. Fairy tale met reality's seatbelt. "I'm Will," he said simply. "Tori," she whispered after pause. "Thank you," barely audible, sincere. Snow whispered secrets on glass. They drove through a hushed world. Wind howled, heater softly hummed. Neither spoke for several miles, silence filled with fragile calm. He stole glances at her profile. Elegant jawline, storm behind eyes. A woman from another world. Money, manners, heartbreak all intertwined, and in that quiet car, two lost souls shared directionless hope, one fleeing her gilded cage, the other learning to care again. There was fragility in her poise, like glass strained beneath silence. "Are you cold?" he asked softly. Her shoulders trembled. A little. He reached behind the seat, pulled out a worn blanket. Faded cartoon bears and stars, his daughter's comfort on long drives. "Here," he said, offering warmth. "Not much, but it helps." She wrapped herself in it, silk and wool meeting worlds. Luxury met childhood simplicity. She caught his look, smiled. "I must look ridiculous." "You look human," Will replied gently. "Someone surviving the worst night." Her smile faltered, truth landing. Something in his tone lingered. Pain, recognizing pain without words. "You speak from experience," she said. "Don't we all?" he murmured. Snow blurred the road to ghosts. Headlights carved paths through memory. The estates thinned into quiet homes, porches, mailboxes, ordinary life returning. He realized he'd been driving nowhere, maybe because nowhere felt safe. The house waited, too big now. Sarah's laughter still lived in corners. He'd kept it for Charlie's sake, or maybe for his own. "Where should I take you?" His voice softened, uncertain, tender. She hesitated, eyes fixed ahead. I don't have anywhere anymore. My old apartment, she murmured faintly. I gave it up. For him. Her hand brushed the wedding gown. Can't go home either. Parents' idea. Silence filled the car again. Will gripped the steering wheel tighter. Something inside him made a choice. I've got a guest room, he said. Nothing fancy, but it's warm, safe. You don't even know me. I don't have to, he said. You're lost. I've been there. Headlights washed over falling snow. The house appeared through the haze. White porch, old oak, quiet welcome. Sarah's touch still lingered in corners. He hadn't brought anyone home since, but tonight felt strangely right somehow. Charlie was away at her friend's, a small mercy he silently thanked. He killed the engine, heart racing. Welcome to our humble home. The lock clicked. Warmth spilled out. Tori stepped in, heels tapping softly. Photographs smiled from wooden frames. Child drawings brightened the refrigerator door. Every corner whispered lived-in love. Her breath caught. It feels like a hug. Will's throat tightened at her words. He hadn't realized how lonely warmth felt. Two broken souls, snow still falling, finding shelter under one roof. You have a beautiful home, she said, meaning it. My wife chose most of it, Will replied, then caught himself. My late wife. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. Coffee? I was going to make some anyway. While Will busied himself in the kitchen, Tori wandered around the living room studying the family photos. She could see the progression of years. A young couple's wedding photo, pregnancy announcements, a tiny baby growing into a bright oak little girl. There was love in every frame, the kind of deep, genuine affection that couldn't be manufactured or bought. How long? She asked when he returned with 2 steaming mugs. 2 years, Will said, settling into his usual chair. Cancer. It was quick, which was both a blessing and a curse. Tori curled up on the couch, tucking the wedding dress around her legs. What was her name? Zara. She was a nurse at the children's hospital. She used to say that healing people was just another form of love. She sounds wonderful. She and Will took a sip of his coffee, studying Tori's face. What about you? What's your story? For a moment, he thought she might deflect or refuse to answer. But something in the warm atmosphere of the house, the gentle acceptance in his voice, seemed to break through her defenses. I was supposed to marry a man named Theodore Blackstone tonight, she said quietly. Theo, he's brilliant, successful, incredibly wealthy. My parents were thrilled. I was supposed to be thrilled, but you weren't. I was supposed to do a lot of things. She wrapped her hands around the coffee mug, seeking warmth. The perfect daughter. The perfect wife, the perfect accessory to his perfect life. But standing there in that church, surrounded by 500 people I barely knew, I realized I was about to disappear completely. Will nodded slowly. So you ran. I ran right out of the church through the reception hall, past the photographers and the wedding planner, and my mother's horrified expression. I just ran until I couldn't run anymore. And now I'm sitting in a stranger's living room in a ruined wedding dress, drinking coffee, and wondering what the hell I'm going to do with my life. That's not the worst place to start over, Will said gently. They talked until nearly 3 in the morning, sharing stories and silences in equal measure. Will found himself opening up about things he'd never discussed with anyone. His fears about raising Charlie alone, his guilt about moving on from Sarah's memory, his worry that he was failing as a father. Tori spoke about the suffocating expectations of her upbringing, the way she'd lost herself in trying to be what everyone else wanted her to be. When exhaustion finally claimed them, Will showed her to the guest room, providing her with some of Sarah's old clothes and toiletries. As he turned to leave, Tori spoke softly. Thank you, Will, for stopping, for not asking too many questions, for just being kind. Get some sleep. he said. Tomorrow's a new day. The next morning, Will woke to the sound of voices in the kitchen. For a moment, he was disoriented. He'd grown accustomed to the silence of the house. Then he remembered Tori and felt a flutter of something he couldn't quite name. He found her at the stove wearing one of Sarah's old sweaters and a pair of jeans, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger this way, more approachable. Charlie was sitting at the kitchen table, studying their unexpected guest with the unblinking intensity that only 8-year-olds could manage. "Dad," Charlie exclaimed when she saw him. "Emma's friend brought me home early because she felt sick and there's a lady making pancakes." Will caught Tori's amused smile. "This is Tori," he said. "She's staying with us for a little while." "Are you Dad's girlfriend?" Charlie asked with the brutal directness of childhood. "Charlie," Will warned gently. "It's okay," Tori said, crouching down to Charlie's eye level. "I'm just a friend who needed help. Your dad was very kind to me." "He's good at helping people," Charlie said matter-of-factly. "He helped me when Mom died." Will felt his throat tighten. It was the first time Charlie had mentioned Sarah spontaneously in months. "Your mom must have been very special," Tori said softly. "She was the best mom in the world," Charlie replied. "She used to make pancakes on Sunday mornings just like these. But Dad can't make them right. His are always too thick. Maybe we can teach him the secret," Tori suggested with a wink. Over breakfast, Will watched something shift in the dynamic of his small family. Charlie, who had been withdrawn and quiet since Sarah's death, seemed to come alive in Tori's presence. She asked questions about school, admired Charlie's latest drawings, and listened with genuine interest to 8-year-old concerns about friendship and homework. "I have to go to work," Will said reluctantly. He'd taken a leave of absence from his finance job after Sarah's death and had been doing freelance consulting from home, but he had a client meeting that couldn't be postponed. "I'll be fine," Tori assured him. "I should probably start figuring out my next steps anyway." "Can Tori stay until you get back?" Charlie asked. "She promised to help me with my art project." Will looked at Tori, who nodded. "If that's okay with you, of course. Make yourself at home." When Will returned that afternoon, he found Tori and Charlie in the backyard, bundled up in winter coats and working on something near the old garden shed. They were laughing about something, their breath forming small clouds in the cold air. It was a sound he hadn't heard in his house for too long. "What are you two up to?" he asked, approaching them. "We're planting a garden," Charlie announced excitedly. "Tori knows all about flowers and stuff. She says we can plant roses where Mom's old garden used to be." Will felt a pang of something complex, gratitude mixed with grief. Sarah's garden had been her pride and joy, but it had gone to seed after her death. He'd been unable to maintain it, and eventually he'd let it grow wild rather than face the painful memories. "That's a big project," he said carefully. "All the best things are," Tori replied, meeting his eyes. "But we don't have to decide anything today. We're just dreaming right now." That evening, after Charlie had gone to bed, Will and Tori sat on the back porch despite the cold, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the snow fall. The backyard looked peaceful under its white blanket. The overgrown garden now just gentle mounds beneath the snow. "Thank you," Will said, "for today. Charlie hasn't been this animated in months. She's a wonderful kid. She misses her mom terribly, but she's resilient. I worry I'm not enough for her. Sarah was the one who knew how to handle everything. The emotional stuff, the girl stuff. I'm just winging it most of the time." "You're doing better than you think," Tori said gently. "Love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up even when you're scared." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the weight of unspoken understanding between them. Will found himself studying Tori's profile, wondering about the woman beneath the polished exterior. She'd shed the brittle perfection of the night before, revealing someone more complex and real. "What will you do now?" he asked eventually. "I don't know," she admitted. I've spent so long being what other people wanted me to be that I'm not sure who I actually am. I have a marketing background, but I've been out of the workforce for the past year, playing the role of the perfect fiancé. You could stay, Will said quietly, surprising himself. For a while. I mean, until you figure things out. Tori turned to look at him, searching his face. That's incredibly generous, but I couldn't impose. You're not imposing. If anything, you're helping. Charlie's been different today, more like herself. And I paused, struggling with the words. I haven't felt this much like myself in a long time either. Will, I'm not asking for anything complicated, he said quickly. I'm just saying you're welcome here for as long as you need. 3 days later, their tentative peace was shattered by the arrival of Theodore Blackstone. Will was in his home office when he heard the cars in the driveway, expensive engines purring with quiet power. He looked out the window to see 2 black SUVs and a silver Bentley parked in front of his house. Theo Blackstone was exactly what Will had expected. Tall, impeccably dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. He was flanked by what appeared to be private security, though they had the courtesy to wait by the cars. Mr. Harrison, Theo said when Will opened the door, I believe you have something that belongs to me. I don't think people belong to other people, Will replied evenly. Victoria is having some kind of breakdown, Theo continued as if Will hadn't spoken. She's not thinking clearly. Her parents are worried sick. Maybe they should have thought about that before they pressured her into a marriage she didn't want. Theo's smile was sharp. You don't understand the situation. Victoria has responsibilities, obligations. She can't just run away from her life because she's having cold feet. It's not cold feet when someone realizes they're about to make the biggest mistake of their life. And you're qualified to make that assessment. Theo's voice carried the edge of someone used to getting his way. You're a nobody.